I knew how to disarm armed men, walk first into dark houses, and keep my voice steady when everyone around me was screaming. But that night, I could not stop my own hand. My name was Melanie Grayson. I was 37 years old, and I worked in a tactical police unit in Ohio. At the department, people knew me as calm, tough, and reliable. I did not panic during calls. I did not raise my voice unless I had to. I did not make unnecessary moves. At work, I was the person trusted with people's lives. At home, I became the person my husband started to fear. The worst part was, it did not start with some huge betrayal. Not with an affair. Not with debt. Not with a secret message on someone's phone. It started with a dirty kitchen. I came home after a 12-hour shift. The day had been heavy, even for our unit. We had responded to a call in a suburb outside Columbus, where a man had locked himself in a garage with a shotgun. His ex-wife was crying in the yard. The neighbors stood behind the fence, recording everything on their phones. We got him out alive. For the report, that was a success. For my mind, it was not. When I walked into the house, my ears were still ringing. I was still wearing my uniform pants, a black t-shirt, and the weight I had not managed to take off with my vest. On the kitchen table, there was an empty pizza box. Near the sink, there was a plate with dried cheese stuck to it. The dishwasher was full of clean dishes, the same dishes I had asked him to unload that morning. My husband, Daniel, was sitting in the living room watching baseball. He was not a bad man. He was a high school history teacher. Kind, calm, a little absent-minded. He could remember the dates of every battle, but forget to buy milk, even when I wrote it on the fridge. Usually, that annoyed me. That night, it broke me. I did not even say, "Hi." I just dropped my bag onto a chair and looked at the kitchen. "Are you serious?" I said. Daniel did not turn his head right away. "What?" That short little "what" hit every nerve I had. Like I was inventing a problem. Like I had come home looking for a reason to start a fight. I pointed toward the sink. "I asked you to unload the dishwasher. One thing, Daniel." "One." He turned off the TV. Not aggressively. He just pressed the button and let out a tired breath. "Mel, I worked today too." I laughed. "Dry. Ugly. You worked in an air-conditioned classroom." He stood up. His face changed. It did not become angry. It became hurt. And I should have stopped right there. Because this was my husband, not a suspect. This was our home, not an operation scene. There was no threat standing in front of me. But I did not see that. I saw the mess. I heard his calm tone. I felt something hot and dangerous rising in my chest. "You're talking to me again like I'm responsible for your whole day," he said. "Don't put this on me. I'm not putting anything on you. I'm just scared to open my mouth anymore." Those words made the room go quiet for a second. Scared. My husband said he was scared to open his mouth around me. I should have heard that. I should have stepped back. I should have said, "I'm sorry, I'm not okay." But the pride inside me was stronger than the truth. I took a step closer. "So now I'm a monster?" Daniel rubbed his face with his hand. "I didn't say that. That's exactly what it sounds like." He walked over to the kitchen table, picked up the pizza box, and threw it into the trash. Then he turned back to me with tired eyes. "There. Happy?" His voice was not loud, but I heard disrespect in it. Probably because I wanted to hear it. I clenched my hand into a fist without even realizing it. In training, they taught us to keep our hands ready. The body had to react faster than fear. That habit had saved me at work. At home, it became dangerous. Daniel saw my fist. His eyes dropped to my hand, then lifted back to my face. "Melanie," he said quietly, "don't do this. Before I tell you what happened next, take a small pause for yourself. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. This story is not just about an argument. It is about 1 second of anger, after which you can never turn everything back." His words should have sobered me up. But they only hit my pride harder. "You think I'm going to hit you?" I asked. He did not answer right away. And that pause became the answer. I felt shame, then hurt, then rage, because shame often hides behind rage. It felt like he was looking at me as if I were a dangerous person. And the worst part was, he had a reason. You're scaring me right now, Daniel said. I remember everything too clearly. The light above the sink. The hum of the refrigerator. The smell of cold pizza. His eyes, where there was no anger anymore. Only fear. I could have taken a step back. I could have gone to the bathroom. I could have walked out onto the porch and breathed. But I made the worst move of my life. I punched my husband in the face. Not a slap. A fist. The way I had been trained to hit on duty. Daniel stepped backward and hit his shoulder against the refrigerator. Blood appeared on his lip almost immediately. He touched it with his fingers and looked at the red stain like he could not believe this had happened in our kitchen. I could not believe it either. My mind suddenly went blank. No excuse. No beautiful reason. No, but I was not defending myself. I was not in danger. I had simply hit the person who was supposed to feel safe with me. Daniel said nothing. That was scarier than yelling. Then he picked up his keys from the counter, walked past me, and went out through the back door. I did not stop him. Not because I did not want to, but because my body felt like it had stopped listening to me. A minute later, I heard his pickup truck start. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at a drop of blood near the refrigerator, and I understood that I had just crossed a line I never had the right to cross. Not in anger. Not in marriage. Not even if I was a woman and he was a man. Then my work phone lit up on the table. The message was from Sergeant Brooks. Melanie, I just got a call. We need to talk. Now. And in that moment, I realized Daniel had not just left to cool off. He had told someone. For a few seconds, I just stared at that message. My work phone sat on the kitchen table like evidence. The screen glowed against the pizza grease, the dirty plate, and the one drop of blood I could not stop seeing. Melanie, I just got a call. We need to talk. Now. I knew what that meant. Sergeant Brooks did not text like that unless something had already moved beyond gossip. He did not chase rumors. He did not panic. He waited, gathered facts, then spoke in that flat voice that made everything worse. My hands were shaking when I picked up the phone. I told myself to breathe. That was what we told people during crises. Breathe. Sit down. Keep your hands where I can see them. Answer simple questions. Do not make this harder than it has to be. Now I was the crisis. I called him back. He answered before the first ring finished. Melanie, he said. Just my name. No hello. No small talk. Sergeant, I said, and my voice sounded wrong. Too controlled. Too official. Like I was already writing the report in my head. There was silence on the line. Then he asked, "Where is Daniel?" I looked toward the back door. He left. Is he hurt? My throat closed. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say it was nothing. A small cut. A misunderstanding. A married couple having a bad night. But even before the life formed, I knew how disgusting it was. Yes, I whispered. Another silence. How badly? He was bleeding from his lip. Did you strike him? The room seemed to tilt. That question should have been simple. Yes or no. But when you spend years wearing a badge, you learn how much one answer can cost. I thought about my job, my unit, my clearance, my firearm, my name on the board beside people I respected. Then I thought about Daniel's eyes. Not angry. Afraid. Yes, I said. I hit him. Sergeant Brooks exhaled slowly. Not with surprise. With disappointment. That hurt worse than shouting. Was there a weapon involved? He asked. No. Were you acting in self-defense? I closed my eyes. No. He did not speak for a moment. Then his voice changed. It became colder. Not cruel. Procedural. Secure your department-issued firearm. Do not touch it after that. Stay where you are. 2 officers are being sent to your residence. My stomach dropped. Sergeant. Melanie, listen to me carefully. Do not call Daniel. Do not drive anywhere. Do not try to explain this to him tonight. I'm not dangerous, I said. The words came out too fast. Too desperate. He paused. You hit your husband hard enough to make him bleed. I had no answer. Because he was right. I looked down at my hands. The same hands that had held shields, radios, children pulled from bad rooms, old women shaking on front porches. Hands people trusted. Now they looked foreign to me. "I need your badge and weapon turned in tonight," he said. My knees weakened. "Tonight?" "Yes." "Am I suspended?" "You are being placed on administrative leave pending review." Pending review. Those two words sounded clean on paper. They felt like a door closing in my chest. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. The chair scraped against the floor, and the sound made me flinch. "Did Daniel call you?" I asked. "No." That answer confused me. "Then who did?" He hesitated. And that hesitation scared me more than the officers coming. "Daniel went to the urgent care near Westerville," he said. The nurse asked what happened. He told the truth. I pressed my fingers against my mouth. I could picture it too clearly. Daniel under bright clinic lights. His lips swollen. His shoulder aching. A nurse asking if he felt safe going home. And him having to answer that question because of me. "Is he okay?" I asked. "I don't know yet." That was the first time I almost cried. Not when I hit him. Not when he left. Not when Brooks said officers were coming. It hit me when I realized I had no right to demand information about the person I had hurt. Outside, a car door slammed. Then another. Blue light flickered across the kitchen window, soft and silent at first. It moved over the cabinets, the sink, the pizza box in the trash. Everything looked ordinary and ruined at the same time. "Are they there?" Brooks asked. "Yes." Open the door with empty hands. I stood up. My legs felt weak, but my body still knew procedure. That made it worse. I knew exactly what officers wanted to see because I had been on their side of the door 100 times. Hands visible. No sudden movement. Calm voice. I walked to the front door and opened it. 2 patrol officers stood on my porch. One of them was Officer Reyes. I knew him. We had cleared houses together. We had laughed over burnt coffee at 3 in the morning. He had once told me I was the kind of officer rookies should learn from. Now he would not meet my eyes. "Melanie," he said quietly. The other officer kept his hand near his belt. That small detail broke something in me. Not because I blamed him. Because I understood him. I stepped back and raised my hand slightly. "I'm unarmed," I said. Reyes nodded. "We need to come in." I let them enter my house. My house. The place where Daniel and I had painted the kitchen yellow because he said it made mornings feel kinder. The place where we had hosted Thanksgiving. The place where our wedding photo still sat crooked on the hallway table. Officer Reyes looked around carefully. Then his eyes stopped near the refrigerator. The blood. He saw it. I saw him see it. He turned back to me, and his face tightened. "Where is your service weapon?" he asked. "In the bedroom safe." "Any other weapons in the home?" "No." He nodded to the other officer, who moved down the hallway. Reyes stayed with me in the kitchen. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I have to ask you some questions." "I know. Did you strike Daniel Grayson tonight?" "Yes." "With an open hand or a closed fist?" The shame came back sharp. Closed fist. His jaw moved slightly, like he was holding back a reaction. "Did he strike you first?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Did you fear for your safety?" I looked at the floor. "No." Each answer stripped away another layer of the story I wanted to hide behind. I was tired. I was stressed. I had a brutal job. He pushed my buttons. He should have helped more. None of it changed the simple thing. I had hurt him. Reyes wrote something down. Then he looked at me with the saddest expression I had ever seen on another officer's face. "Melanie, you understand this may be handled as a domestic violence incident." Domestic violence. The words landed like a slap. I had heard them in reports. Said them into radios. Used them in court statements. I had stood in living rooms and told shaking women, "You don't deserve this." But I had never imagined those words would be attached to my name. Before I could respond, the second officer came back carrying a sealed evidence bag. Inside was my service weapon. Reyes took it without looking at me. Then my phone buzzed again on the table. Not my work phone this time. My personal phone. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. For one wild second, hope rushed through me. Maybe he wanted to talk. Maybe he was coming back. Maybe we could still pull this back from the edge. But when Reyes glanced at the screen, his face changed. "Don't answer that," he said. The phone kept vibrating. Then a text appeared beneath Daniel's name. I'm at the hospital. They took pictures. I told them everything. And right after that, another message came in. This one was from my mother. What did you do to your husband? My mother's message made my stomach twist harder than the officer's questions. What did you do to your husband? Not, are you okay? Not, what happened? Not even, call me. Just that. What did you do? Because somehow, in the space of 1 hour, the truth had already started moving faster than I could control it. I looked at the phone like it belonged to someone else. Officer Reyes picked it up from the table and placed it face down. Melanie, he said, do not respond to anyone right now. I nodded, but I barely heard him. All I could think about was Daniel at the hospital, sitting under fluorescent lights, letting a nurse photograph his split lip. Maybe his shoulder, too. Maybe the red mark on his face where my fist had landed. My fist. I hated that word now. Reyes asked me to sit in the living room while they finished securing my weapon. I sat on the edge of the couch where Daniel had been watching baseball less than an hour earlier. The screen was black now. The remote was still on the armrest. Everything looked normal. That was the cruelest part. The house did not look like a crime scene. It looked like a marriage that had paused in the middle of a tired Friday night. A pizza box. A dirty plate. A TV remote. 2 coffee mugs from the morning. And 1 drop of blood near the refrigerator. Officer Reyes stood near the hallway, speaking quietly into his radio. He was careful with his words, but I knew the language. Female suspect. Domestic incident. Victim at hospital. Department issued weapons secured. Suspect. That word moved through me like ice water. I had called people suspects for years. I had watched them stare at me with anger, denial, fear, and shame. I had seen the exact moment they realized their version of the story would not erase what their hands had done. Now that person was me. The second officer came back from the bedroom. Safe is clear, he said. Reyes nodded, then turned toward me. Melanie, we are not placing you under arrest right now. But this report is being filed. The prosecutor will review it. Your department will be notified officially. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because my department already knew. My sergeant knew. My weapon was gone. My badge would be next. The woman who had spent years proving she belonged in rooms full of men had just handed every doubter the weapon they needed. And the worst part was, they would not be wrong to use it. Can I see Daniel? I asked. Reyes's face softened for half a second. I can't advise that. I just need to apologize. I understand. But tonight, contact could make things worse. Worse. I wanted to ask how anything could be worse than this. Then I realized I already knew the answer. I could scare him again. Pressure him. Make him feel guilty for telling the truth. Turn my apology into another kind of control. That thought made me sick. Because I had seen victims take their abusers back after apologies. I had heard the same sentences. I didn't mean it. I was stressed. It will never happen again. You know I love you. Suddenly, those words did not sound romantic or broken-hearted. They sounded dangerous. And I understood something I had never fully understood on duty. A person can cry and still be unsafe. A person can regret it and still have done it. A person can love you and still hurt you. Reyes left me with a copy of the incident number. The paper looked small in my hand, almost harmless. But I knew what it could become. A case file. A hearing. A suspension. A divorce. When the officers walked out, the house became too quiet. I locked the door, then immediately hated myself for locking it. As if I had any right to feel unsafe. As if I were the one who needed protection. My phone buzzed again. My mother. Then my sister. Then my mother again. I did not answer. Instead, I walked back into the kitchen and crouched beside the refrigerator. The drop of blood had dried darker now. I stared at it for a long time before I grabbed a paper towel. But when I tried to wipe it, my hand froze. It felt wrong to erase it. Like cleaning it would turn it into a smaller thing. So I left it there. I went upstairs and sat on the bathroom floor with the light off. That was where Daniel usually came when he had a migraine. He would sit with his back against the tub and breathe slowly until the pain passed. I wondered if he was doing that at the hospital. I wondered if his lip hurt when he spoke. Then I remembered his eyes again. You're scaring me right now. I pressed both hands over my face. For the first time that night, I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just hard enough that I could not pretend anymore. I cried because I had hurt him. I cried because he had to tell strangers what I did. I cried because I finally understood that being a woman did not make my violence smaller. It did not make it funny. It did not make it harmless. It made it violence. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time it was not Daniel. It was Sergeant Brooks. Turn in your badge at 8 a.m. Internal Affairs will contact you. Do not report for duty. I read the message 3 times. Do not report for duty. Those 5 words took my breath away. For years, duty had been the thing that held me together. It gave my pain a schedule, my fear a uniform, my anger a place to hide. Now duty was telling me to stay away. I got up from the bathroom floor and walked into our bedroom. Daniel's side of the bed was untouched. His book was still open on the nightstand, face down to hold the page. I picked it up, then put it back exactly where it was, as if he might still come home and keep reading. But at 1:14 a.m., my sister finally left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking. Mel, Daniel's at our house. He doesn't want to see you. Mom is furious. And he said he's not coming home tonight. I sat down on the bed. Then she said the sentence that made the room spin. He's talking about filing for a protective order in the morning. The words protective order followed me into morning. I did not sleep. I sat on the edge of our bed until the sky turned pale gray behind the blinds. Daniel's side stayed empty. His pillow still had the faint dent from the night before, and somehow that hurt more than if he had packed every piece of himself out of the room. At 7:30, I showered like I was going to work. Same shampoo. Same tight ponytail. Same black boots. But I did not put on my uniform. I stood in front of the closet and stared at it hanging there. The shirt. The patches. The belt. Everything that had once made me feel useful and steady. Now it looked like something I had not earned anymore. At 8:02, I walked into the station carrying my badge in one hand and my department ID in the other. People tried not to look at me. That was worse than staring. Nobody said anything cruel. Nobody had to. Officer Reyes was near the front desk. He saw me, nodded once, then looked away. I could tell he had not slept much either. That bothered me in a strange way. My mistake had followed him home too. Sergeant Brooks was waiting outside his office. He looked older than he had the day before. Melanie, he said. Sergeant. He opened the door and stepped aside. Inside, there were 2 people already seated. Lieutenant Harris from Internal Affairs and a woman I recognized from the Union. Her name was Paula Denton. She gave me a small nod, but there was no warmth in it. This was not a conversation. This was a process. I placed my badge on Brooks's desk. The sound was soft. Still, it felt final. Lieutenant Harris folded her hands. Officer Grayson, this meeting is administrative. You are not being ordered to answer questions about the criminal matter today. You have the right to consult counsel. Hearing my own last name in that tone made my mouth go dry. Criminal matter. Not marriage problem. Not bad night. Not mistake. Criminal matter. Paula leaned slightly toward me. Melanie, listen carefully before you speak. I nodded. But my mind was already running ahead. Prosecutor. Court. Suspension. Termination. Protective order. Divorce. News. My mother. Daniel. Lieutenant Harris slid a folder across the table. This is the preliminary incident summary. I did not touch it. For a moment, I could not make my hand move. Brooks spoke more quietly. You need to read it. So I opened the folder. The first page was bad enough. Date. Time. Location. Victim name. My name. Closed fist strike. Visible injury. Hospital documentation. Then I turned the page. And my stomach dropped. There was a section titled Prior Incidents Disclosed by Victim. Prior incidents. I looked up fast. What is this? Lieutenant Harris did not blink. Mr. Grayson reported that last night was not the first time he felt unsafe in the home. The room tightened around me. That's not true, I said. Paula touched my arm under the table. Not hard. Just enough to warn me. I looked back at the page. March 18th. Subject punched pantry door during argument. I remembered that night. I had not hit Daniel. I had hit the door beside him. I told myself that mattered. I told myself it was only frustration. The door had a small dent near the hinge, and Daniel fixed it the next weekend. I never apologized. April 7th. Subject blocked bedroom doorway during argument, preventing victim from leaving. My breath caught. I remembered that too. Daniel had tried to sleep in the guest room. I stood in the doorway and said we were not done talking. He told me to move. I said, then make me. At the time, I thought it was just a fight. Now, written in black ink, it looked different. May 22nd. Subject threatened to ruin victim if he told anyone about problems at home. I whispered no. But even as I said it, I remembered. I had said, go ahead. Tell people your cop wife is mean to you. See how that looks. I had laughed after saying it. Daniel had not. My hands went cold. This was insane. Not because Daniel was lying. Because he was telling the truth, and I had buried every piece of it under excuses. Stress. Exhaustion. A hard job. A sensitive husband. A bad temper that never really meant anything. Except it did mean something. It had meant something to him every time he got quiet. Every time he walked on eggshells. Every time he cleaned the kitchen too fast when I came home tense. Every time he checked my face before deciding what kind of voice to use. Lieutenant Harris turned another page. There are photographs. I looked at her. What photographs? She did not answer with words. She simply slid them toward me. The first photo showed the pantry door. The second showed a crack in our bedroom door frame. The third was a screenshot of a text Daniel had sent my sister 3 weeks earlier. I read it twice before the words made sense. I don't know how to say this without sounding weak, but I'm scared of what Mel might do if she really loses control. Weak. He had used that word about himself. Because he was a man. Because people joke when wives hit husbands. Because even good people sometimes treat male fear like it is embarrassing. And I had counted on that without ever admitting it. I put the papers down. For the first time since walking into the station, I stopped thinking about my career. I thought about Daniel sitting alone with that fear, wondering whether anyone would believe him. I thought about him choosing silence because my badge made me look safe to the outside world. But a badge does not make your home safe. A strong woman can still be cruel. A respected officer can still hurt someone. A wife can still be the danger. Brooks's voice softened. Daniel filed for a temporary protective order this morning. I closed my eyes. Has it been granted? The emergency order was granted until the hearing. The room went quiet. That meant I could not go home if he was there. I could not call him. I could not text him. I could not ask my sister to pass along a message. For the first time, the law stood between Daniel and me. And the terrible truth was, it needed to. What happens now? I asked. Lieutenant Harris looked down at the folder. Your firearm remains secured. You are on administrative leave. The prosecutor will decide whether to file charges. The department will also require a fitness for duty evaluation. There it was. The job. The thing I had built my identity around. Hanging by a thread. I nodded because I had no better response. When the meeting ended, Brooks walked me to the side exit. Not through the main lobby. I knew why. He was protecting the department from whispers and maybe protecting me from seeing people watch me leave. At the door, he stopped. Melanie, he said, I have known you for 9 years. You are a good officer in many ways. My eyes burned. Then he added, but good officers can still do terrible things at home. I looked away because I could not hold his gaze. Outside, the morning sun felt too bright. My sister was waiting in the parking lot. She stood beside her SUV with her arms crossed, her face pale and tight. I thought she might hug me. She did not. She just opened the passenger door. I got in. For several minutes, we drove without speaking. Then she said, Daniel showed me the pictures. I stared out the window. I know. He's been scared for months, Mel. That sentence opened something raw inside me. I didn't know it was that bad. My sister gripped the steering wheel harder. No, you didn't want to know. I turned toward her, ready to defend myself. But nothing came out. Because she was right. At the next red light, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. And there's something else. My chest tightened. What? She swallowed. Daniel doesn't want you staying with me. I felt the blood leave my face. Why? The light turned green, but she did not move right away. Because he's there. Because he's there. For a second, I did not understand the sentence. My sister's house had always been my backup place. After bad shifts, after fights with Daniel, after holidays with too much family noise, I had driven there without asking. Rachel would make coffee, let me sit at her kitchen island, and say something sharp enough to make me laugh. But now Daniel was there, and I was the person who could not come in. Rachel pulled into a gas station parking lot and turned off the engine. She did not look at me right away. Her hands stayed wrapped around the steering wheel like she needed something solid to hold. He came over after the hospital, she said. Mom brought him. He didn't know where else to go. I stared through the windshield at a man filling his truck. Ordinary life kept moving around us. People bought coffee. Someone laughed near the entrance. A little girl dropped a candy bar and her father picked it up. Meanwhile, I had lost the right to walk into my own sister's house. Did he ask you not to take me there? I asked. Rachel finally turned toward me. Yes. The word was small, but it hit hard. I nodded like I understood. I did understand. That was the worst part. Daniel had spent years making room for my stress, my silence, my sharp tone, my need to control every conversation. Now, for the first time, he had made one clear boundary. And that boundary was me. Rachel's eyes were red. I love you, she said. But I'm not going to make him feel unsafe because you're uncomfortable. I swallowed. I know. No, Mel. I need you to really know that. Her voice cracked, and that scared me more than anger would have. You're my sister, she continued. But last night he sat at my kitchen table with stitches in his lip. He kept saying he was sorry for causing trouble. I closed my eyes. Sorry. Daniel was apologizing while sitting injured in someone else's kitchen. He didn't cause trouble, I whispered. No, he didn't. The silence between us felt like punishment, but maybe it was just truth. Rachel started the car again. I booked you a motel for 2 nights. I turned to her. A motel? Yes. The old me wanted to snap. The old me wanted to say I was not some criminal hiding off the interstate. I had a house, a career, a badge, or at least I did yesterday. But I did not say it. Because the old me had done enough. Rachel drove me to a small motel near the highway, the kind with beige curtains and a vending machine humming outside the office. She parked by room 118 and handed me a key card. Then she reached into the back seat and gave me a gym bag. I packed some clothes from the laundry room, she said. Mom grabbed your medication and charger. Thank you. She nodded, but she still did not hug me. That hurt. It also made sense. Before she left, she stood beside the car and looked at me like she was trying to decide whether I could hear the truth without turning it into a fight. Mel, she said, you need help. I know. I don't mean a department evaluation. I mean real help. The shame rose fast, hot, and defensive. I said I know. She flinched slightly. And there it was. That tiny reaction. That half step backward. My own sister had done it too. I softened my voice. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean to snap. Rachel looked down. That's the thing. You never mean it. But people still feel it. Then she got in the car and drove away. I stood outside room 118 with my bag at my feet, feeling smaller than I had ever felt in my life. Inside, the motel room smelled like bleach and old carpet. I set the bag on the bed and sat beside it. The mattress dipped under me with a tired squeak. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to be. No radio. No shift. No husband waiting. No badge on my belt telling the world I was one of the good ones. Just me. And what I had done. I called the number Paula from the union had given me. She answered on the 3rd ring. Are you alone? She asked. Yes. Good. Listen carefully. Do not contact Daniel. Not directly. Not through family. Not through friends. Do not post anything. Do not explain yourself online. Do not try to get ahead of it. I wasn't going to post anything. You'd be surprised what panic makes people do. I looked at the motel wall, where a framed picture of a lake hung crooked. What should I do? Get a criminal defense attorney. Then get a therapist who understands law enforcement trauma and anger. Not for the case. For you. For you. That phrase landed differently. Not for my career. Not for the department. Not to look good in court. For the part of me that had become dangerous and called it strength. After we hung up, I searched for therapists on my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long time before I pressed call. A receptionist answered. I almost hung up. Then I said, I need help with anger. And I need the first available appointment. My voice shook on the last word. But I did not take it back. That afternoon, Rachel texted me one sentence. Daniel is meeting with an attorney tomorrow. I stared at it until the letters blurred. I knew what that could mean. Divorce. Or something close to it. At 6:40 p.m., another message came in. This one was from Sergeant Brooks. Local news requested comment about an officer involved in a domestic violence investigation. Department will release a brief statement tonight. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I turned on the motel TV with shaking hands. And 20 minutes later, my name was not on the screen yet. But my street was. My street was on the screen. Not my name. Not my face. But my street. A reporter stood under the orange glow of a street lamp, speaking in that careful voice people use when they know they are standing near someone's private disaster. Behind her, I could see the corner of our front porch. The yellow kitchen curtains. The driveway where Daniel's truck should have been. I turned the volume up with shaking fingers. Authorities have confirmed that an officer with a local tactical unit is currently under internal review after an alleged domestic violence incident at a private residence last night. Alleged. That word sounded like mercy. But I knew what happened. The reporter continued. The department has not released the officer's name, but confirmed that the officer's service weapon has been secured and that an administrative review is underway. I sat on the motel bed and felt the room shrink around me. In the bathroom mirror, I could see part of my face. Tired eyes. Wet hair. A woman who still looked normal from far away. That was what frightened me. People expect violence to look obvious. A monster. A drunk. A screaming person. Someone with no job, no discipline, no public respect. But sometimes violence wears a clean ponytail. Sometimes it carries a badge. Sometimes it says, I'm just stressed until someone bleeds. My phone started buzzing. First one message. Then another. Then 10. Some were from people at the department. Is this about you? Mel, what happened? Please tell me this isn't true. One message came from a former teammate named Collins. Keep your head up. Couples fight. Don't let them make this bigger than it is. I stared at that one the longest. A day earlier, I might have wanted that comfort. I might have grabbed it like a rope. Couples fight. It sounded simple. Forgiving. Easy. But it was also the kind of sentence that lets people hide from the truth. Daniel and I had fought. Then I punched him. Those were not the same thing. I deleted the message without answering. Then my mother called again. This time, I picked up. For 2 seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Melanie and Grayson. The full name. The childhood warning. I closed my eyes. Mom. What happened? Her voice was tight. Not soft. Not comforting. I hit him. She inhaled sharply. With your hand. With my fist. The silence after that was brutal. My mother had raised 3 daughters by herself after my father left. She was tough in a way that did not need volume. I had seen her work 2 jobs, fix sinks, fight insurance bills, and still make pancakes on Sundays. She believed women should never make themselves small. But she also believed strength without control was just damage. Is Daniel safe? She asked. That question cut through me. Not, are you going to lose your job? Not, what will people say? Daniel. Rachel said he's with you. He was. He went back to Rachel's after speaking with the attorney. My throat tightened. Is he filing for divorce? I don't know. Mom. No, she said firmly. You don't get to ask me to find out for you. I opened my mouth, then closed it. She was right. Again. Everyone kept being right, and somehow that was harder than being attacked. I raised you better than this, she said. Those words hit the child in me. The part that still wanted my mother to say I was not terrible. I know. Do you? Tears filled my eyes. I think I'm starting to. Her voice softened, but only a little. Your grandfather hit your grandmother twice. Only twice, people said. Like twice was nothing. She stayed because everyone told her men had tempers. I had heard pieces of that story, but never like this. My mother continued. I promised myself my daughters would never excuse violence in a home. Not from a man. Not from a woman. Not from anyone. I pressed my hand over my mouth. I'm sorry. I'm not the one who needs that apology. I know. And you may not get the chance to give it. That sentence broke something quiet inside me. Because until then, some hidden part of me had still believed apologies were guaranteed. That remorse would open a door. That Daniel would eventually sit across from me and let me cry enough to prove I understood. But maybe the consequence of hurting someone was losing access to them. Maybe the safest thing I could do for Daniel was stay away. After we hung up, I sat in the dark until the motel lights outside came on. Cars passed on the highway. The vending machine hummed. Somewhere nearby, a couple laughed as they walked to their room. Life kept making ordinary sounds. Mine did not feel ordinary anymore. The next morning, I went to the therapist's office wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt. No uniform. No badge. No hard face. The waiting room had soft chairs and a table full of old magazines. A small fountain bubbled in the corner, like calm was something you could buy and plug into the wall. When the therapist called my name, I almost stood like I was reporting to a supervisor. Instead, I walked in like a woman who had run out of places to hide. Her name was Dr. Elaine Porter. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that did not let me escape. So, she said after we sat down, "What brings you here?" I looked at my hands. I hit my husband. She did not gasp. She did not soften the sentence for me. Tell me what happened before that. I told her about the shift, the garage, the shotgun, the kitchen, the pizza box, the dishwasher, Daniel's voice, my fist. Then she asked a question I was not ready for. What did hitting him give you in that second? I stared at her. Nothing. She waited. I wanted that answer to be true. But slowly, shamefully, I found the real one. Control, I whispered. Dr. Porter nodded once. And what did it cost? My eyes burned. Everything. Before I could say more, my phone vibrated in my bag. I knew I should ignore it. But I looked down. It was an email from Daniel's attorney. The subject line made my chest go cold. Notice of hearing and petition for dissolution of marriage. The subject line stayed on my phone like a verdict. Notice of hearing and petition for dissolution of marriage. I did not open it at first. I just held the phone in my lap while Dr. Porter watched me from across the room. She did not ask to see it. She did not rush into soft words. She let the silence do what I had spent years avoiding. It made me sit with myself. My husband filed for divorce, I said. My voice sounded flat, like someone else had borrowed it. Dr. Porter nodded slowly. What are you feeling? I almost said I don't know. That used to be my safest answer. But it was not true. I feel scared, I said. And ashamed. And angry. At Daniel. I looked down. No. At the fact that he gets to leave. The second the words came out, I hated them. They were ugly. But they were honest. Dr. Porter leaned forward slightly. Good. That is important. I looked at her confused. It's not good. No, she said. It's not good that you feel entitled to his presence. But it is good that you said it out loud. Entitled. That word burned. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I loved my husband. That I did not own him. That I just wanted one chance to explain. But underneath all of that, there was something smaller and darker. I wanted him to stay long enough to make me feel less guilty. And that was not love. That was need wearing love's clothes. 2 days later, I stood outside a courthouse in downtown Columbus with an attorney beside me. I had never felt so strange walking into a courthouse without a badge on my belt. People moved through security with coffee cups, folders, tired children, and scared faces. I had testified in buildings like that dozens of times. I knew the rhythm, the metal detector, the quiet hallways, the benches where people waited for their lives to change. This time, I was not there to help the case. I was the case. Daniel stood near the other end of the hallway with Rachel and my mother. His lip was still swollen. A faint bruise had spread near his jaw, yellow at the edges now. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not weak. Just tired in a way I had caused. For one impossible second, our eyes met. Every apology inside me rushed forward. I am sorry. I was wrong. I scared you. I hurt you. I should have stopped. But the protective order stood between us, even in the silence. So I lowered my eyes and said nothing. That was the first useful thing I did for him. I stayed quiet. Inside the courtroom, the judge spoke in plain, firm sentences. The emergency protective order would remain in place. No contact. No messages through family. No showing up at the house if Daniel was there. A later hearing would address property and the divorce petition. My attorney did not fight it. I had asked him not to. When the judge asked if I understood the order, I stood. Yes, Your Honor. My voice shook, but I did not explain. I did not say I was stressed. I did not say I had never done anything like that before, because by then I knew that was not completely true. I had been crossing smaller lines for months. The punch was only the line everyone could finally see. As we left the courtroom, my mother passed close to me. For a moment, I thought she might look away. Instead, she stopped. You did the right thing by not fighting it, she said quietly. It was not forgiveness. It was not comfort. But it was the first sentence from her that did not feel like a door slamming. I nodded and my throat tightened. Is he okay? Her face hardened slightly. Melanie. I know, I said quickly. I shouldn't ask. She studied me for a moment. Then her voice softened. He is trying to be. That hurt more than any detail. Because trying meant it was still hard. And I had made it hard. The criminal side moved slower. My attorney told me the prosecutor was reviewing the hospital report, the officer's statements, and Daniel's account. There might be charges. There might be a plea. There might be mandatory counseling, fines, probation, or worse. Every sentence began with might. My life became a hallway of unopened doors. At the department, Internal Affairs called me in for a second meeting. This time, I brought my attorney and said very little. But I listened. They read policy sections about conduct, off-duty behavior, use of force, credibility, firearms, and public trust. I had read those policies before. I had even trained younger officers on parts of them. Hearing them applied to me felt like standing outside my own body. Then Lieutenant Harris asked one question. Do you believe your actions damaged the department's trust in you? My attorney shifted beside me, ready to stop me. But I answered, yes. The room went still. I continued before fear could close my mouth. And more importantly, I damaged my husband's trust in his own home. Nobody spoke. For once, I did not need anyone to praise me for saying the right thing. I just needed it to be true. The next weeks were not dramatic in the way people expect. There was no big movie apology. No rain-soaked reunion. No tearful moment where Daniel suddenly understood my pain and came back. There were motel rooms, lawyer bills, therapy sessions, a court-approved intervention program where I sat in a circle with people who all had different excuses and the same problem. The first night, a man across from me said, I only pushed her once. The counselor looked at him and asked, how many times should someone be pushed before it counts? I felt that question in my bones. Because mine was not, I only pushed her once. Mine was, I only hit him once. Same lie. Different sentence. Every week, I learned to hear myself more clearly. The sarcasm. The control. The way I used my job to shut people down. The way I called Daniel sensitive when he was actually afraid. One evening, Dr. Porter asked me to write a letter to Daniel that I would never send. I sat in the motel room for 3 hours before writing the first line. Daniel, I used to think not meaning to hurt you mattered more than hurting you. Then I stopped. Because that was the whole story. Intent did not clean blood off a kitchen floor. Love did not erase fear. Regret did not give him back the safety I took. The next morning, I received an email from Internal Affairs. My disciplinary hearing had been scheduled for Friday. Attached was one document. Recommendation: termination of employment. The word termination did not shock me the way I expected. Maybe because some part of me had already known. I sat on the motel bed with the laptop open, staring at the document until the screen dimmed. Then I moved the mouse, and the words came back bright again. Recommendation: termination of employment. 9 years of service. Hundreds of calls. Training records. Commendations. One line at the bottom of a disciplinary report could still outweigh all of it. And maybe it should. That was the hardest thought to accept. Not because my work had meant nothing, but because my work did not cancel out what I did at home. At the hearing, I wore a navy blouse and black pants. No uniform. No badge. Nothing that made me look braver than I felt. Sergeant Brooks was there. Lieutenant Harris was there. 2 commanders sat at the long table with folders in front of them. My attorney sat beside me, ready to speak, ready to protect what could still be protected. But when they asked if I wanted to make a statement, I did not look at him. I stood up. My actions were not a private misunderstanding, I said. I assaulted my husband. I damaged his safety, his trust, and this department's credibility. My hands shook, so I placed them flat on the table. I used to believe control made me strong. I was wrong. Control without respect becomes fear. And nobody should be afraid inside their own home. Nobody interrupted me. Not even my attorney. I am not asking to return to the tactical unit, I continued. I am not asking anyone to pretend this was smaller than it was. My throat tightened. I am only saying that I understand why I cannot carry the same trust today. When I sat back down, Brooks looked away. I think he was trying not to show emotion. The decision came 2 days later. Termination. Effective immediately. No ceremony. No final walkout. No handshakes in the parking lot. Just a letter. I read it once, folded it carefully, and put it in the motel desk drawer. Then I cried for the woman I used to believe I was. After that, the criminal case moved forward. My attorney negotiated a plea to a misdemeanor domestic violence charge. There was probation, fines, mandatory counseling, and a long firearm restriction that made returning to my old work impossible. In court, Daniel gave a short victim statement. I was not allowed to look at him for long, but I heard every word. I don't hate Melanie, he said. But I was scared in my own house. And I need that to matter. That sentence stayed with me longer than the judge's order. I need that to matter. It did. For once, I did not cry to make anyone soften. I did not look at Daniel like he owed me comfort. I stood when the judge asked if I had anything to say. Then I said the only thing that belonged in that room. I am sorry. You did not deserve what I did. Daniel did not answer. He did not have to. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. We sold the yellow house. Rachel helped Daniel pack on a Saturday morning. I came the next day after he was gone because the order still mattered. The kitchen looked emptier than I expected. No pizza box. No dishes. No blood. Just sunlight on the floor. I stood near the refrigerator for a long time. That was where my old life had cracked open. Not because of a dirty kitchen. Because I believed my anger had more rights than his safety. I took only what was mine. Clothes. Books. A box of training certificates I could barely look at. At the bottom of the hallway closet, I found our wedding photo wrapped in an old towel. For a minute, I held it against my chest. Then I placed it on the counter. Daniel deserved to decide what happened to that memory, too. A year later, I was living in a small apartment across town. I worked for a nonprofit that helped first responders find counseling before their families became the place where stress exploded. I did not tell people what to do like I had all the answers. I told them what I had lost. That worked better. Sometimes men stayed after the sessions and spoke quietly. They would say things like, "My wife throws things, but it's not serious." Or, "She slapped me, but I'm bigger, so it doesn't count." I always looked them in the eye. "It counts," I would say. "Your body counts. Your fear counts. Your home should be safe too." And sometimes women stayed after. They would say they only yelled because they were tired. They only blocked the door because he would not listen. They only shoved him because he made them feel small. I never judged them from above. I had no right, but I told them the truth. The moment you use your hands to control someone you love, you are no longer solving the fight. You are becoming the danger. One afternoon, after a support session, I found an envelope tucked under my office door. There was no return address. Inside was a short note in Daniel's handwriting. I stood there for almost a full minute before I read it. Melanie, I heard you're speaking about what happened. I hope you keep doing that. I'm okay. I'm rebuilding. I hope you are too. Daniel. That was all. No forgiveness. No invitation. No open door. But also no hatred. I sat at my desk and held the paper with both hands. For the first time, I did not wish he had written more. That little note was already more than he owed me. That night, I went home to my quiet apartment, made tea, and washed my cup before going to bed. Such a small thing. Almost ridiculous. But I had learned that life often breaks in small moments. A sentence. A pause. A clenched fist. A decision not to step back. I used to think danger was something waiting behind doors. Now I know it can start in a kitchen, in a tired voice, in the lie that anger is harmless when it comes from someone who says they love you. I lost my marriage. I lost my badge. But I did not lose the lesson. No one has the right to hit someone in their family. Not a husband. Not a wife. Not once. And if that truth reaches someone before their hand becomes a regret, then maybe the worst thing I ever did will not be the only thing my life leaves behind.